there. I'm gonna speak about a controversial topic, and that's the usage of the word señora versus señorita, and the word usted versus the word tu. First of all, to understand these words, we gotta go back in history. So I can tell you guys, and everybody, pretty much everybody in the Latin world knows where these words come from and the history of those words, these words. These words go back to monarchic Spain even before the conquest of the Americas. So we're talking about the 1300s, the 1400s, the 1500s. The word señora meant a married woman, no longer a virgin. And the word señorita meant still a virgin. And that was very important back in those days. The word usted, it's actually even more than respect. It's a word that is used as a form of reverence. The Spaniards, being a monarchy, they do have a hierarchical vocabulary. Of course, the king and queens are not going to be addressed as the same as the populace and the rest of Spain. So these words are hierarchical, and not to mention archaic and anachronistic. They're an anachronism is something that's from another era. And, we're talking about the 1300s, the 1500s, because that's when the 1500s, the Spaniards brought those terms to the Americas to establish a hierarchical system so that the indigenous people, who they consider non-civilized, and of course darker complexion, that was very important too, would speak to them in a way that showed reverence, not just respect. That's reverence for being of a whiter skin, for being of a more civilized culture or society. Okay, we established that's what those words mean. In the year 2020, I don't know in other countries, but in Mexico, those words have been given a different spin. But that's not what they mean. I mean, are we supposed to start giving words a different spin? That's not what they mean. That's what those words mean, what I just explained. Now in Mexico, if you look old, they'll call you señora. If you look young and attractive, they'll call you señorita. The word is the same as usted, and versus tu. Tu is a word that denotes, or it's a word that when you address somebody as tu, you're basically telling them that we're equals. You address your peers as tu. You address the young people as tu. Tu would be the equal of you. In the United States, in English, we do not have this word usted. It doesn't exist. We don't have the equivalent of that word. You use you. So, I find it a little irritating, to say the least. I mean, people in Mexico get very angry when you tell them not to address you as usted, and they get irate. And that's been my experience. They all of a sudden go, but I'm saying it to you out of respect. I don't understand, because, in the United States, I say you to everybody, and I'm not disrespecting them. Again, these words are of a hierarchical nature where you don't speak to everybody the same, because they come from a mindset that not everybody is the same. And I hate to tell the world, but everybody is the same. Personally, I don't want to be spoken differently because of my age, because of my social status, and because of my skin color. I want to be treated exactly the same as everyone. I don't need to be revered with the word usted. Reverend, it shows reverence. I'm not the Dalai Lama. I'm not the Queen Elizabeth. I'm not the Queen of Spain. I'm not Gandhi. So, again, in my opinion, never use these words. And I know a lot of Spanish teachers will disagree with me, but language teachers are not sociologists. A sociologist, somebody that understands sociology, would understand that as a society changes, in our way of thinking change, in our attitudes change, the vocabulary must, yes, it's a must, it must change. Because we don't think like Spain, monarchical Spain thought in the 1300s. And for what's next? Are we going to be using the corsets and the whatever they wore back in that day? No, words should be applicable to our modern times, to the way we live now, to the way we think now. It used to be that 35 years old was very old back in the 1500s. We don't consider a 35-year-old woman old anymore. We don't consider even a 45-year-old woman old anymore, We have come a long way in our thinking process to liberate ourselves from old ways of thinking. We made an effort, women, men, everybody, society. We've made an effort, through the years, through the decades and centuries, to think differently, and hopefully for the better. Why hold on to traditions? And the one thing that I find very, very dangerous is to put traditions to respect traditions before respecting in the individuality, the freedom, the independence of a person. And you can see the example of what respecting tradition more than respecting human rights and individuality has done to countries like India, where they sell 10-year-old girls because it's a tradition to marry them. It's a tradition to marry a 14-year-old. It's a tradition. Don't question it. Just shut up because it's a tradition. In Africa, in some parts of Africa, female mutilation is still the tradition. Are we supposed to say, well, it's a tradition? Don't question it. Don't ask why. It's a tradition. Words are very powerful. I don't know if people know this, but scientifically it's been proven that verbal abuse and emotional abuse does more damage to children eventually in the long run than does physical abuse. It can damage a person for the rest of their lives. There's something very, very creepy about a speaker giving themselves the freedom to look at me and decide whether I'm a señor or señorita and whether I should be spoken to as usted or tú. He's deciding for me what I am. And he is intruding into my individuality by calling me something I'm not. First of all, I'm not even married. I don't even qualify for the word señora. I'm not married. I don't have children. I don't qualify for the word señorita either. And as far as usted, again, and I'm being repetitive, I don't feel like I have to be revered for any reason. I've heard, there are people who do get offended in Mexico when, say, a waiter, they go to a restaurant and the waiter says tú to them, which again, it implies peers, it implies we're the same, we're equals here. And if you ask the person, the only honest answer they could possibly give you, and again, it's a cultural bias one, because in Mexico, being a waiter is something that a lower class would do. It's not considered like a higher class job. I know in the United States, many people who want to be actors and actresses or waiters is no big deal. So the only honest answer a person say, I don't know about other countries in Latin America because I know Mexico better than I know other countries. The only honest answer that person could say is, I'm not the same as a waiter. I'm not the one serving food here for a living. I'm a CEO, so no, we're not the same. No, yes, we are the same. Because we are not what we do. We are not how old we are. We are not what skin color we are. We are not how much money we make. We have a common value, no matter whether you're wearing Gucci or Walmart. And it's a common value, which is birthright, and probably the most important of our birthrights is your freedom to be whoever you are. And only you know that, and no government, no society, no group, no tradition, no culture can tell you who you are. You're a free person and a citizen of the world. I mean, we have borders and we have people who are very nationalistic. Blind nationalism is really stupid. Before we have all of that, we are just a human being. And by birthright, you have the freedom to be yourself, whatever you want to be, regardless of age, race, social status, country. I don't care. So stop using those hierarchical, colonial, archaic, anachronistic words. They are no longer applicable in the year 2020.